Lou here, and welcome back to Acorn Hill. We are again in the plant room today. It's still cold outside, and there's a few things that I still have to prepare for, but the temperatures are still fairly cold that I cannot go outside yet. The indoor garden, our indoor plants, are now getting ready and raring to go for spring. Today, I figured I'd talk to you about one of the earlier bulbs and earlier spring flowering plants to show up. And these are the daffodils. You can see I have them here. I put them in pots. These are mini daffodils that I planted in the fall. And whenever they start popping up and start showing their blooms, it not only gives you that sense of renewal and sense of spring. It's exciting to look at. This is the moment of the year we are waiting for them to come up. These are mini daffodils, and daffodils have a long history and a long story of reputable blooming and reputable growth during springtime. It really harkens the arrival of the vernal equinox when the sun and the way the earth tilts and the way it rotates now starts to differ. And so on this part of the world, on this hemisphere, it is now slowly turning up spring.
Now, the daffodils that I planted are called tete-a-tete miniature daffodils. They are perky little heirloom daffodils that have fragrant buttercup yellow petals and yellow-orange cups. They are deer resistant, they require full sun, and grow about 6 to 8 inches tall.
Bulbs that I got, I think they're about 36 in one bag, and what I did was I planted them in this pot. Planted them back in November, placed them in a dry and secure, cool place, and that was in our garage. And as the temperature started to warm up little by little, I saw growth happening on them, and I started placing them by our fireplace. We have a gas-powered fireplace, and the heat emanating from it has allowed the foliage to grow and allowed the blooms to come up. These are mini ones. As you can see, they are yellow, sunshine yellow with that nice dark yellow orange throat. And the shape of the daffodil bloom is very unique in that you have what appears to be a collar, like a shirt collar, and then you get this cup that sticks out and either a different color or the same color as the color of the bloom. They are easy to grow, easy to pot, either plant them in a pot like I did or plant them in the landscape. They grow well in well-draining, moist soil, so don't dry them up because the bulbs really need to get some water once the foliage starts appearing and starts growing. Similar to the video that I showed you with the amaryllis, they all belong almost in the same family. Once the green foliage pops up and starts to grow, they will require regular watering. And in this case, because these are potted in terracotta, terracotta pots will immediately evaporate some of that moisture. I tend to water them every day. Water that has my favorite water-soluble indoor fertilizer. It took about 3 weeks at the time that I saw the initial growth of the leaves. It took about 3 weeks for these little blooms to come up. And all in all, from the bottom of the pot all the way down to the tip, this is about 20 inches long. And so this is good just on a tablescape, on the table, or just somewhere empty in your living room that you need a good shot and jolt of color to brighten up your living room. Right now, what we will do with them is we'll allow them to grow. We'll continue to water them, allow the daffodil blooms to slowly die back. And once we see, let me show you, once we see this swelling happening, there's that swelling again, similar to the bloom, the amaryllis that I told you. Any bulb will produce a flower, and whenever we see that swelling happening here, which will form the seed for the plant. We don't want that to happen. Any of these petals starting to wither and starting to dry up, that's the time when we snip them, we put them in a vase, and we leave the plant alone. We leave the foliage alone and allow the foliage to continue receiving sunshine, either indirect or direct sunlight. That way, photosynthesis can occur in the leaves. They act as solar panels, as I mentioned in my past videos. And what they do is convert the sugar coming from the leaves and put them back into the bulb, and that's the energy that you will need for next year's growth. And I think if you know how to do that, if you know how to recycle this, grow them, cut them back, and cure them and store them, you will always have these reliable blooms every spring. One of the important things that I added to the soil that I have, this is just your regular potting soil. You don't need anything fancy. It just does not need to be heavy and claggy, because you don't want too much moisture that could potentially rot your bulb. I planted them into the soil with bone meal. That's my favorite ingredient, as many of you know, and that's what's produced all these blooms, and they could last about a week, these blooms, because of that bone meal. Later on, I know that in some parts of the world that watch me, there's no bone meal to be had, like regular packaged bone meal. And so one of these days we'll put out a video where we could have where I could introduce you to bone meal replacements or bone meal additives and bone meal substitutes. Now, that would be a good video to have, right? In any case, we are enjoying this. We will wait for these blooms to start dying back, at which case we will cut them right down to the tip. You see how long this stem is? This is the bloom, and that's where we will snip them off. We will leave the leaves behind and allow the leaves to naturally die back. When they start flopping down, that's when we cut them all the way across. We cure the bulb, meaning we clean it well before we put it in a container that's fairly breathable, so that they could dry up nice and maintain that nice onion shape to it before we put them back in somewhere cold and dark. And in my case, what I do is I put them in the crisper of our refrigerator, and that's where we will mask and fool the bulb into thinking that it's winter, so that when it's fall time again, we plant them back either on the landscape and in pots like this. So having a small arrangement or a small collection of these pots, we go to different stores and different bargain shops to get these pots. This pot this big, I got this for $1 off sale, and it's always good to have them set back and placed back somewhere, so that when you need them in the fall, they are ready to be planted for these good plants that we have. I hope you learned something new. It is a very quick update on what we have, what I planted back in the fall, and in a quick show and tell on what they could look like in an arrangement like this. So I hope you learned something new today, learning about daffodils and the basics of growing them indoors. For those of you who have stumbled into the channel, subscribe. We have a lot more little mini capsule videos like this, and mini tutorial and mini introductions during these times. We're experiencing an unusual time, but we're happy to share with you anything that we know. For now, this is Louie, and we'll see you back here in Acorn Hill. Have a good day. Bye-bye.